is one final time this year. West Shore home field at Beaver Stadium and a night game in primetime, Nebraska in town. For the first time since 2017 to take on the Nittany Lions here on Senior Day. Penn State finally picking up that elusive Big Ten win last week on the road at Michigan State, downing the Spartans 28-10. Brian Tripp, Christian Hackenberg, Jason Kabinda, Kaylee Tallman, our entire team with you once again here on the Modelo Penn State football pregame show. It is senior night. Nebraska's in town. The Cornhuskers are 7-3, and you got a couple of Penn State alums squaring off on the sidelines tonight as well. But Penn State finally coming off a victory last weekend. They get on track, and it really was an emotional win for this football team, going on the road and finding an identity against Michigan State.
Yeah, I think they needed it, man, and you could see the emotional volcano that erupted at the end of that with Coach Smith being carried off the field. I think the guys definitely just needed it, and it was cool to see. Hope they can carry that momentum into the game tonight because they need it to stay alive for the bowl eligibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think that whole game can really just be encapsulated really with that fourth quarter drive, that 13-play drive. I mean, it was grit, it was resilience, it was perseverance. They went through some adversity during that game, and they really, I felt like, found an identity, especially offensively in that game. And then really defensively got our identity back. Yep. You know, the D-line pressure with a lot of sacks, 5 sacks, a lot of destruction, denied data Sutton, block punt. A lot of good plays out there, a lot to grow from, especially in the play-action game. I thought there was a lot I'd love to see last week.
Well, it always comes full circle, right, in this game of football. Nebraska, a team that you can run the ball against, but they got an excellent running back, Emmett Johnson, who's going to be up for the Heisman this year. So you're going to have to be really good at the line of scrimmage again tonight against Nebraska. But that's the way football works. Now it's, can you build off of that game last week? Try to get back to 500 and put yourself in bowl eligibility. But I think for the senior class, too, who's been incredibly successful, you try to go out on a high note here your last time playing in the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, 30 seniors, that's a big number. I can't remember the last time I've had a class of 30 guys. Yeah. And for a lot of them, you know, it didn't necessarily – this season hasn't gone the way that I think any of them wanted it to. But when you ultimately see where they're at and the opportunity that's at hand, to your point, started to get an identity, they can finish on a high note. It's extremely important, I think, to send them out the right way. We talked about this previously. That was something that I loved about my time here early at Penn State. It was all about the seniors because we didn't have anything else to play for. So it's something I have a ton of respect for, and I really hope that this team rallies around them and it really gives them a great experience because you miss it, man. Sitting here now, however many years later, like I'd give an arm and a leg to run out of that tunnel one more time and strap it up. So I hope that they get everything they want out of it and more.
Yeah, sitting inside too, right? We're a little bit soft tonight. We're sitting inside, last game of the year here, November 22nd.
It is nice outside.
That's the irony. We decided we're going to be inside. Kaylee's be outside. But the irony is that it is beautiful. We talked about the emotion, and Terry Smith, you could see it after the game, being carried off the field and what it meant for him. His first win as the Nittany Lions interim head coach, and just everything that went into it for the football team last week. Jason, you had a firsthand perspective right there on the sideline, just how much it meant to this entire group to get the win and do it in the fashion they did.
Yeah, man, I think it was one of the dopest things I've ever saw. I mean, me and Terry shared a cool full circle moment. You know, gave each other that little wink when they're at that 50-yard line. I could just see the focus and determination that these kids are really riding. So he's got that fight in there. That's kind of something in the earlier in the year I really had an issue with, you know, this team with the fight, the energy, and the effort. And I'm starting to see flashes of that come back. They're starting to piece that together in longer stretches. And obviously it's a big game for us from a standpoint of we still have something to play for. Yeah. You know, we're going to go out there and we're going to see if this team wants to play another game, if they want to keep this group together for one more game and one more opportunity. So, you know, big opportunity today. Nebraska's already qualified for bowl eligibility, obviously. So it's going to be about who wants it more today.
Yeah, Nebraska team that really hasn't had any road challenges to this point. They haven't played the most difficult of schedules. So they're in here and they're trying to end Matt Rule's third year, right? Third year, Matt Rule. Then you start to get that trajectory going. They're trying to end it on a high note. But we talked about that emotion. Look, we're all Penn Staters. We all bleed blue and white. Kaylee bleeds blue and white. And I think it's something that really resonates with this fan base. And then to hear how emotional Terry got this week at his press conference talking about that first win at the helm of Penn State.
It's very humbling for me. I apologize. It's just humbling sitting in this seat. There's so many people in my life that speak life into me. And they all reach out. And I'm just so blessed. God has been so good to me through everything in my life. I have the opportunity to be the head coach at Penn State. I don't think anything has made me or my family happier than this opportunity. I'm thankful for all my friends, my family, my supporters. Saturday was, I can't even tell you how I felt. I've never been lifted off the field in my career.
I know my reaction as someone who's covered the team, someone who's gotten to know Terry and knows the type of person and leader that he is and type of coach that he is, but then also as an alum and as a Penn State fan and someone who bleeds blue and white. But I can only imagine as fellow lettermen with Terry to see someone conduct themselves the way he's handled a very difficult situation and to see how much that means for him, who's shared in those moments inside that locker room that only a very special group of people, yourselves included, have gotten to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is you know, I talked about when we made the decision to move on, like the need for somebody who understands this place. And it's completely evident by the way Terry just reacted there that he gets it. And what I love about it is he prioritizes everything that is Penn State above himself. He understands the power of that and how that can impact not only the players in the locker room, but the fan base, everybody else around there. And that's just a great element of it. It's the brand that built him. He gives a tremendous amount back to it. And it's just really good to see. He gets it. I love Terry Smith. I love the job he's done. And just a big tip of the cap. It's a tough situation, and he ran into the storm. No qualms, no questions. And that's the type of guys that this program produces.
Yeah, man. I mean, when I watched this press conference, I was tugging at the heartstrings. I can't lie. You know, I know Terry a long time. He's been an absolute professional from the day I met him, and there's no one on this planet who is more Penn State than Terry is. Like, he is the definition of Penn State, of what it's about, the type of person that you should be, the type of values that you should embody. So there was no question, you know, when Terry became the interim head coach, that it was the right move. And it's clear that he's taking advantage of this opportunity right now. And, you know, I'm just really proud of him. You know, I'm proud of Terry and proud of what he's doing. And I'm just happy that he's grounding us again and kind of bringing us back to what we're all about. He's doing a great job of that.
Well, I'm going to nuke the rundown a little bit here because we're talking about this. I know fans watching, they want to know, okay, well, what's the latest with the coaching search? What are you guys hearing? And I think everyone's just speculating at this point. There's a lot of stories, a lot of rumors out there. But you talk about understanding Penn State. Does it have to be a Letterman? Does it have to be a Penn State guy? Or how can someone come in and become a part of that culture, no matter where they come from, what his background may be? What are some of the things that Terry has done in a short time that allows him to connect with fans that anyone, whether they're a Penn Stater or not coming in, can learn from and say, you know what, this is one thing I have to do when I take that job, no matter who it is that Penn State eventually offers to be their next head coach?
Frankly, I think that's a really tough decision because Terry's playing with house money from that regard because he wore the uniform.
Yep.
It's an outlier. I think that's really tough to compare Terry to anybody that's going to come in here who hasn't put it on, strapped it up, and done it, right? Yep. And that's his competitive advantage in the situation. But I think when you look at it, and just my understanding of Penn State, like obviously we're global, but there's a massive following within this state, and the state and the the program culture are kind of synonymous, right?
Yeah.
Like you think about the coal mining industry and blue collar and taking your lunch pail to work every day and earning it and putting in a good day's work and being proud of that. And like I said, it produces men like Terry Smith. And that's what it's all about. And I think, like, I guess to answer your question in a very succinct manner, it's someone who was brought up that way, who understands those values, because it's going to resonate with 80% of your fan base.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the head. I mean, the first thing when you asked that question I thought of was being blue-collared. Not only that, you talk about being relatable to the fans. I think that's one of the biggest things Terry has done in his press conferences, because of the fact that he's been transparent as hell and he's been accountable.
Yeah.
And the reality is we haven't really seen that in our coach from a standpoint of the level of transparency. I mean, he was joking around a little bit in that press conference a week ago when he said, "Oh, well, it took me about 2 games to figure out how to throw the ball down the field." But I mean, that's real. We're not used to seeing that. So from a relatability standpoint, he has that, and I'd expect that next coach to have that same level of transparency, of accountability. How were you raised? Blue collar, tough, grit, resilient. All of these words I'm using are words that would describe Penn State and somebody that I would expect to be hired next.
Yeah, so we're going to turn the page here and see what else is coming up on today's show here as well. We're going to talk more about that Michigan State game, but talk about it from an X's and O's standpoint. What Penn State did really well. Speaking of turning the page, James Franklin introduced this week as the new head coach at Virginia Tech. We'll talk about keys to the game for Nebraska tonight, and of course our Senior Day celebration, and we'll check in inside Beaver Stadium with Kaylee Tallman as well. But you see it right there. James Franklin introduced at Virginia Tech this week. We know the financial details now. 5 years, $41.5 million. The Penn State buyout down to $9 million, which does play out into how his contract was structured at Virginia Tech. Just the reaction, I think this was a direction a lot of people thought it was going for him. He lands in the ACC, a pretty manageable conference the way it's set up right now. It's certainly a school that they've shown a commitment and an investment in what they're going to do there. But now we know that page is turned. James Franklin has his next home, and then that has some reciprocating impact on, staff, recruits, players at Penn State. It's not like you turn the page and you completely move on, because there's still those parallels there running between the programs.
Yeah, I think obviously he's going to be in our backyard from a recruiting standpoint. He's done a really good job of recruiting the DMV, Virginia, Maryland areas. But to kind of go back to what you said, I mean, I think the ACC is perfect for him when you judge and all of the national media in terms of what his lack of ability to accomplish while he was here. He's going to be able to kind of put that on the back burner at Virginia Tech. There's some there's some parallels to the type of program, kind of like you were talking about, type of culture with Virginia Tech and Penn State. And I think he's going to be able to potentially learn from some of the mistakes he made early here, going into a culture that's very like-minded in terms of the fan base. Blacksburg is, as a kid who grew up close to Charlottesville, completely different. And my younger brother played baseball at Virginia Tech, but completely different from the University of Virginia in terms of how they approach things. So it's just, that's a good parallel for him, and I think something he can learn from. But ultimately for Coach Franklin, couldn't have landed in a better spot in terms of the path to his success and building in the ACC, with his track record up until this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go too much into, coach and what he'll do at VTech, but from a standpoint of, the implications it has on us, you mentioned staff, Andy, Kevin already gone, maybe there's people in the building that you're used to seeing every single day, greeting or having interactions with, that are no longer there and things of that nature. So that's kind of the implications of something like that. Obviously wish Coach Franklin the most success, and I'm sure he will be successful over there. He's really great at building programs and getting that confidence back and things of that nature. And VTech is a respectable program, really genuinely is. I'm sure he'll have a lot of success there.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because some staff members, I think it's as many as 8 staff members from what reports have been already on the move. You won't see them on the sideline tonight. The recruiting staff, they're out of the building already. So it is like another distraction, Jason, that the team has to navigate through this week. And now your resources are a little bit diminished going into a big football game tonight.
Yeah, I mean, if you told me going into the season that, all of this would happen, I mean, I'd tell me, come on, there's just no way, and you talk about distractions, and that's kind of one of those things. It's been about 3 or 4 weeks now, but that's kind of one of those things that it puts it right back there in your face. So damn, this really happened. This is happening. There's more implications and more different stuff that's being pulled. And so I think that's tough to deal with, and that's what I think personally Terry has done such a good job of, is keeping guys focused on what is ahead, what is the next challenge, and let's just keep our focus there. That's huge.
Yeah, and I think he addressed that too. He said it's next man up mentality. So I think that's a point, and that's part of the business, man. Like there's going to be more departures. There's relationships that are built, and that's the business of college sports and frankly the landscape that we're all living in.
Frankly, I like what you did there. You talked about recruiting. You mentioned it briefly. We have to dive into that a little bit as well. Everyone sees all the OVs at Virginia Tech, and the names keep popping up. Is it time for Penn State fans to hit a panic button yet on recruiting? How important is this 2026 class right now, knowing that you don't know who the next head coach is? So what is the overall thought around the direction Penn State goes from here, knowing what recruiting could look like? And obviously a portal, like all these things, but what's the level of concern?
Well, I think that I would pump the brakes on all concern from that standpoint, just because of the portal, like you mentioned. It's something that previously this would have been devastating to any program if you didn't have the ability to put pieces in place quickly with kind of like more mature products. Because at the end of the day, most of these kids stepping on campus are not going to be ready to play day one anyway, right? So it's frustrating. It's, again, part of the game, and it's going to happen. But I think you're going to have to really hone in on the dudes that you do get here that are about what Terry Smith is about, right? This place, what it means to put that uniform on, and then subsequently whomever comes in, we're going to have to probably do a really good job in the portal to be able to piece this together, especially with 30 seniors departing too. Like that's another big piece of it. That's got to be accounted for, but I think the transfer portal kind of makes that a little bit easier, and that's one of the good things about that.
Well, you talk about the players, so we haven't even talked about any players yet here on the show, right? We want to get to that at some point.
I mean, but the reality is, I think to me it's very concerning. That's personally what I believe. I think it's very concerning. I think from a standpoint of the fact that we want to be the type of program that does home grow their players, and to have 17 decommits in one class, like that's a big deal. As small as we want to make it, and you can say transfer portal and things of that nature, but the reality is you go get transfer portal guys, you don't really know what kind of culture they've been growing in. You don't know what they're accustomed to. You don't know how, and obviously this goes in recruiting. You go and you try to find out if this guy is a Penn State guy at the end of the day and things of that nature, but the reality is they're not homegrown here. They haven't been in the culture. They don't really know what it's about until you step on campus and you're here. So it does concern me from that standpoint, because I know that's not the type of program we want to be in. It's not the world we want to live in, is relying heavily on the transfer portal. Transfer portal to me should be the type of thing where you got a couple holes in the wall, you can just kind of just fill them in here and there, but it ain't something you got to plaster a whole wallpaper on the wall and think that everything's gonna look pretty and perfect. That's my issue with it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think
my concern
that I'm not saying that that's going to be the long-term fix, right? I'm saying that's going to be able to address the 2026 problem. And frankly, if these kids are I don't think that they necessarily align if the movement of Coach Franklin is the deciding factor as to whether or not they're going to come here. You know what I mean? And I think that you could potentially dodge a bullet with that if you're talking about culturally homegrown kids. If they were kids who are aligned culturally, we wouldn't be talking about 17 decommits. You know what I mean?
And I hear you, but my thing with that is you lose 17 commits in one class, and it's not a short-term solution. Because you got to think about the state of the program where we're at right now. We're going to have a lot of seniors who leave. We have a class that's incoming that's decimated right now, and a big question mark and a head coach and not knowing who's leaving and who's going to come. So that's where the possibility of it ended up being a longer-term solution comes in, because there just might be that many holes. And then you look at it over time, what losing that many commits in just one class can do. That's kind of why I'm so concerned about it.
We've been there before. We got over the hump. We got over the mountain.
Tell you that.
Lived it firsthand himself right here. And these are the conversations that are happening hourly, right? By the minute, by this fan base. And then there's still a football game that you have to put all this aside and go and play tonight. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Senior Day as well. We'll check in with Kaylee here coming up. You're watching the Penn State Football Pregame Show. It's presented by Modelo, the official import beer partner of Penn State Football. 21 plus. Please drink responsibly. We turn the page to today's game. We'll look back at the Michigan State game, but we'll talk about Penn State, Nebraska when we come back here in just a moment.
This is the mark of a fighter. A rich, full-flavored lager with a crisp, refreshing taste. A reward for those with a fighting spirit. You've earned this, so hold it up high. Modelo, the mark of a fighter.
We are going for all the marbles next year.
You know the history, and you have felt the roar. But now, you can relive it all.
I think he was looking for a good meal, Italian meal.
Welcome to the Vault on Roar Plus, where every unforgettable Penn State moment lives forever.
If you can get people to believe you're fair, I think that's the whole secret of coaching.
From black and white grit to high-def glory, the Vault is your front row seat to the moments that built this tradition and the ones that built you as a fan. It's not just history, it's Penn State history. And it's all right here at Roar Plus. The roar never stops.
This is the mark of a fighter. A rich, full-flavored lager with a crisp, refreshing taste. A reward for those with a fighting spirit. You've earned this, so hold it up high. Modelo, the mark of a fighter.
And we welcome you back here to the Penn State football pregame show. It's presented by Modelo. Penn State and Nebraska tonight. Night game, primetime here on November 22nd. Night game, what's going on here? Inside Beaver Stadium, Brian Tripp, Christian Hackenberg, Jason Kabinda. And it is senior night, as we talked about. More than 30 seniors being recognized, all that staff that's involved as well. But seniors, players being recognized prior to the game tonight. We also have a Penn State senior on our team. Kaylee Tallman. Kaylee, no tears today. No tears today. But I know how emotional this day can be for so many involved with the program, but especially those guys who are suiting up for the last time inside that hallowed stadium tonight.
Look, Brian, I definitely don't want to cry today, but I can tell you it's a good reason that I might be crying because of how much I care about this place. And I think that's true for so many people who are celebrating their last game as students here in Beaver Stadium. And that's the case for 30 of these players who have worked so hard for the past 4 or 5 or 6 years even to play on this field and play for this university. And we're going to have the senior ceremony ahead of today's game starting at 6:30. And my favorite part of senior day, I've covered a lot of senior days across different sports here in my time in the past 4 years at Penn State, but my favorite part of it is just seeing the families, because you know with these athletes, Jason and Christian in particular, that your parents and your families are the ones who are really able to get you to this point. So seeing them being celebrated as well, because for some of these guys, this is the end of the road in terms of their football playing careers. Now, especially with this senior class, I don't think it's any secret how much they've meant to the university as one of the most successful periods of time here for Penn State football this year aside, especially. And a lot of those guys made the decision to come back and play one final year despite being able to go to the draft. So I think if you hear from head coach Terry Smith here in a second, you'll see how much those seniors have meant to this team.
They've meant everything. You know, they've had the greatest 3-year stretch of wins in Penn State history. These guys have helped build the walls here, help keep the tradition alive, and we've won a lot of games with these guys, and you know it's a great honor to those guys for one last hurrah at Beaver Stadium.
And one of those guys being honored today is senior Dominic DeLuca, who has played here at Penn State for the past couple of years, and he started his Penn State career as a walk-on, actually. And talk about a guy that's Penn State through and through. He grew up coming to Penn State games with his family. He actually had to convince his parents one time to buy him a whiteout ticket because they thought he was too young to last throughout the game. But I talked to his parents, Riri and Carl, before his senior day last year, and they said that it was really special. Their favorite Penn State memory up to that point was when he returned his first pick six against Delaware, his redshirt sophomore year, to the area of the stadium that he used to watch games with his grandfather in. Unfortunately, his grandfather had passed away, but they said that was just kind of a full circle moment of, wow, our son is really playing for this team he grew up coming to watch. So I'm sure he will be emotional today, celebrating his last game here at Penn State along with his family and all those other 30 guys who will be honored today. And Jason, I know you had your senior day. Take me back to that moment for you last couple years.
Yeah, I remember my senior day and, giving Mom a big old hug, over in the end zone and stuff like that. And it's emotional, You realize how far you've come, how much energy you've put into this place, and blood, the sweat, the tears, the injuries, the setbacks. And it's really just a moment to be reflective. I still remember me taking that last look around the stadium, knowing that it was my last, home game. And not only that, but, it's the last home game with your brothers, guys that, you end up forming relationships that, to this day, I still FaceTime Marcus Allen and Amani Oruwariye and Mark and, all those guys. And we're just still so close. So, these are guys, we say brotherhood and we say family, but man, like here at Penn State, we really mean it. That's really what those guys meant to me. It's what this place means to me. And I do remember having a pretty big day and having a nice sack on Nate Sudfeld, I believe the quarterback was. And I think it was Nebraska as well. It was our senior day game. Yeah.
You're talking about senior day. It was funny because what struck me from Kaylee talking about Dom DeLuca there is how he's a Penn Stater and he grew up in Pennsylvania and he always dreamed of playing at Penn State. That takes us right back to the conversation we were having with Terry and what you're going to see in the next head coach. Like there's something special about this place, and Dom is one of those guys who really embodies that.
Yeah, it's centrifugal, man. It's crazy how it works, and we played with guys like that. You could think of Von Walker growing right here in Walk Haven, and he ended up earning a scholarship. So it's one of those things that's a staple. You know what I mean? Every team, every cycle has a handful of those guys, and I think that's really the glue. They're glue guys.
Yeah. Glue guys. I love it.
All right, let's talk about last week's win, 28-10 against Michigan State. And this is where I think you saw all elements. We talked about the identity right off the bat today. But you saw all elements of this football team start to come together, and they started to play complementary football. You got a run game going. Katron Allen had a career high in rushing. He's only 138 away from the rushing record today here at Beaver Stadium. Maybe he can do it on his senior night, but you got the run game going. Defense is able to create another turnover. You go down, score a touchdown after that turnover to put it away. What was it about that game against Michigan State that really stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak offensively, like just the identity in terms of who they're going to be, relying on the run game, meshing it. It's something we talked about last week, but it still holds true, and it took us up until this point to really have this flow and rhyme and reason to why we're doing things with setups that ultimately lead to these explosive plays. And people talk about trying to drive the ball down the field. Well, that happens by establishing a great run game and marrying those up with the actions, both from the offensive line, quarterback, and running back. And we were able to see that continue to be built upon, right? Yep. It's not as mature as we probably would want it to have been had we started that week one, but at least we got it going in that direction, and that's something that you can build on. Not only the remainder of this season, but heading into next year. Like, who do we want to be? We want to be a tough physical team that controls the line of scrimmage and then marries our explosive passing game with our running game. So it was refreshing to see that. You saw Grunt get a little bit more comfortable, I think you could say, and seeing those things, turning us back to the defense and being able to find those holes. So I thought he did a great job as well.
Yeah, why don't you take us through that here? Because Ethan Grunkemeyer only threw 13 passes in the game. He was 8 for 13, 127 yards, 2 touchdown passes, had the 75-yard bomb to Devontae Ross in the game. And look, 50 carries, 240 yards, but they were able to marry that together last week.
Yeah, they married it together really well. And again, it's not rocket science, right? It's like, hey, we want to run the football, and then we want to marry these shot plays with our run. And you see how it affects the second level. You have 23 there, I believe it was, or 27, zone dropping back to the defense. That's how you create space. That's how you give your receivers an opportunity to create space. Similarly here, the run action there gets the safety to dive. Devontae Ross is able to outrun everybody to the back pylon. But then when you talk about Gronk, right, just finding easy wins, finding completions, doing what he needed to do. He didn't play outside of himself, played within the scheme, and kept the team on schedule and played a really efficient football game. And at this point in his career, that's what he needs to focus on. He needs to focus on doing his job, not trying to do anybody else's job, and be a piece of the pie as opposed to trying to be the whole pie. Doing it with his legs as well. I just thought it was a really strong performance and something that he can build upon for his future and continue to finish the season strong here.
And even on a play like that last play, like, I get it, it's 1st and 10, and it may not look like much. It's only a 4-yard scramble, but man, on first and 10, if we were to hand off inside zone and get 4 yards, we'd be very happy with that. Those are the little things, that Grunk does well that maybe we don't really give him enough credit for, being able to keep the offense on schedule and be decisive in ways like that. So.
Imagine that. We always start talking about the quarterback, right? You had a guy who ran for 181 yards, first Penn State player with 180 or more rushing yards since Journey Brown in the 2019 Cotton Bowl against Memphis. Katron Allen, career high 181 yards last week, over 7 yards per carry, a couple of touchdowns. Now you kind of seen it against Indiana. You got Nicholas Singleton going a little bit, Ohio State, Indiana, Katron Allen. You got that 1-2 tandem in the backfield. Get them 40 touches tonight. Let them go. And Jason, Katron Allen was really, really good when you dive into the footage, what he did against Michigan State.
Yeah, I mean, I love so much about Katron Allen and his game. And before we roll the tape, there's one thing that Katron, I mean, there's many things he does well, but there's one specific thing I think he does better than any back in the country, and that's the ability to stretch people to the outside and cut up inside of them. And you see him do it all the time. This is another example. Okay, boom, he's out to the outside. Okay, here's Katron here. Like, look at this jump cut. Stretch him outside, jump cut inside. Like, there aren't a lot of backs who can make a cut like that. And he makes it look easy, but I don't think you guys understand how difficult it is. Another thing he has that's so great is his patience. We run a lot of gap scheme runs with pullers. Now, I don't know if there's a back in the country that does a better job of allowing his blocks to develop, waiting for holes to open up, and then hitting them with tenacity. And then obviously we know Katron's game. This guy's always falling forward. He is always getting the extra yard. And that's what Penn State's about. That's the fight. That's the energy. That's the effort. But you see the cuts, his ability to make people miss. That's what's going to make Katron Allen so good at the next level, is his ability to make people miss. Straight up. I mean, a run like this, I mean, he's also added a step.
Yep.
You know, we talked about that. You know, he said he toned down in the offseason, lost a little bit of weight. We see that step. We see that more game-breaking speed, his ability to get away from defenders on the outside and on the second level. So he's just continuing to improve and get better and better and better.
And you saw all the offensive linemen go into the media room after the games because they were outstanding last week, right? It starts in the trenches, and as we transition to defense, it started on that defensive front. Deni Dennis Sutton and Zane Durant. You need your best players to be your best players, and right now Penn State's best players are playing like their best players.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think defensively, you know, right now, I think the biggest thing when it comes to the identity and getting back to who we are that I saw against Michigan State was tenacity.
Yeah.
That's the word. That's what's been missing a lot of times this year is the tenacity. And that's what I saw this past week. When you look at the pressures, when you look at the sacks, and you look at the TFLs, getting people off schedule, destruction, and then just tenacity and finishing. That's where we are improving right now defensively.
Well, and Terry said that. He told Jim Knowles, put that Prowler package back in. It gives those offenses something else to look at. And now you have a defense that's starting to really understand Jim's defense, and they're starting to play fast, and they're playing downhill. They're not guessing anymore. They're the ones that are taking it to the offense.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, the Prowler package definitely helps on those advantageous third and mediums to third and long situations, just because the offense is probably going to be very one-dimensional from leaning towards the pass game there. But what I like to see about the defensive line really the past few weeks has been they've been playing much more like a unit. It's something we talked about. They've been rushing as a unit. They've been the integrity of their rush and the intent of their rush has been very, very focused and laser focused the last few weeks. And I think that's been able to get guys like Deni Dennis Sutton more one-on-ones, and he can now time those like hero plays up to where it's not going to cost us or burn us. And on the back end, to your point, I think we're settling in a little bit more with Jim's checks and how they want to adjust to certain formations and motions to be able to make up for that. So I thought that's starting to come together, but I think to your point, it starts up front, and up front they've been much more disciplined than I've seen earlier in the year.
Well, Jason's going to have footage to support that as well. Michigan State was just 1 for 10 on third downs in the game. You're able to get off the field. That's why you rack up all that time of possession, right? It goes hand in hand, but Penn State's ability on third down to get off the field was really important.
Yeah, and I think to me that spoke a lot not only to the D-line. We talk about the pressures, the sacks, and things of that nature, but I thought the DBs had their cleanest game.
Yeah.
I mean, from a tackling standpoint, from taking angles, from recognizing route combinations, and really what the situation is. What's the down and distance? What kind of routes am I going to get? And that's film study. You know, that tells me that these guys are putting more time in after practice, in the film room, things of that nature. Let's roll the tape. Like TFLs, like one thing I'm saying about this defense right now is like people swarming the ball. Like that's so much Penn State swarming the ball. I need to see 3, 4, 5 bodies tackling guys. You see the rush integrity. Like there's nowhere for him to step up in the pocket here. You see Elliot Washington make a great tackle on a great angle. You see Zion Tracy even getting into the blitz package. That's a fast guy getting into the backfield. The blitz packages have been so much better. We're finally getting home. We're not allowing the quarterback to escape out of some lane, and then now we're in trouble because we blitzed and we have less people on the back end. So we're just being more efficient. We're playing sound. We're playing within the integrity of the defense right now.
Well, you talk about getting after the quarterback tonight, a matchup of backup quarterbacks, right? Dylan Raiola out for the year for Nebraska, so TJ Lateef coming off a bye week, but coming off a really impressive first outing against UCLA, gets the start tonight for Nebraska. He's a guy who's been good so far in limited action, and he also has mobility again. That's that one thing that's haunted this defense all year long, and Penn State's going to have that challenge tonight. He's not the star for Nebraska. The running back Johnson is, but Penn State is going to have that challenge tonight as we transition to tonight's game.
Yeah, at the end of the day, this is a guy I don't think we can afford to sleep on. You know, I've seen him. I know it's a smaller sample size right now, but that's the biggest difference between him and Raiola is he adds that element of being able to run. This guy is very mobile. He can pick up the first downs with his legs, and he can throw it pretty decent. You know, I saw a few rhythm and timing throws. It's not like he's one of those dual-threat quarterbacks that just has one read and then he's taking off. No, he's playing within the confines of the offense and trying to find the open man, and then when there's nothing there, he has that ability to make something happen with nothing.
Yeah, let's look at his numbers from that UCLA game. And again, this is 2 weeks ago. Minnesota, a bad loss for Nebraska earlier this year. And there's the matchup tonight. Penn State heavily favored. But Lateef has had, again, these opportunities, and he played well a couple of weeks ago against UCLA.
He played well.
Yeah, and I think obviously not as dynamic of a passer and as pure as a passer as Raiola is, but because at the end of the day, Johnson had 100 yards receiving on a few receptions there too. So you're talking screen game, and that helps. Yeah. But the sum of the two holes of him being good enough from a thrower standpoint, and then the leg element to that is I think going to be something that Nebraska is going to continue to try to mesh with. Right, you're trying to now fit a system to your player, right, instead of trying to stuff a square peg into a round hole. So I expect to see some change ups to their scheme, especially coming off a bye week, that really fits in his skill set.
And it's honestly, it's kind of crazy to also see the evolution of the quarterback position to where a dual threat quarterback used to be a rarity. And now it's almost as if, as an offense, if you have a statue quarterback that can't move, you're almost at a disadvantage now. You know, that's kind of where things are going, not only in college, but in the league as well. We're starting to see more and more dual threat quarterbacks thrive at a high level. Now, obviously, if you end up being a Lamar Jackson, where you also master the passing in the way that Lamar has, you're almost unstoppable, you know? So I just think it's interesting to see the evolution of the position now and how offensive coordinators are wanting this run element out of their quarterbacks, because it adds more that the defense has to deal with.
Yeah, and tonight Penn State's defense is going to have to deal with Emmett Johnson, right? He had 129 rush yards, 103 receiving yards in that game at UCLA. He's got over 1,100 rushing yards this year. He's 14 touchdowns. He's a really effective receiver out of the backfield. What makes him so good? He is the focal point. As much as we want to talk about Lateef, everything that they do offensively goes through this guy.
Yeah, he doesn't come off the field. And when you have a guy like that, you know, typically you have your third down back. He's a guy, to your point, from a receiving skill set, can catch the football. And really, he's just a dynamic football player in space. You give him space, he's going to take advantage of it. And Nebraska's definitely going to be trying to feed him early to try to take that pressure off of TJ Lateef in this environment, which, to your point, as you mentioned earlier, that this Nebraska team has not really faced a tumultuous away schedule up into this point, and we know how much of a challenge Beaver Stadium can be, especially at 7 p.m. Even though it is Thanksgiving break, I still think it's going to be a pretty good tournament.
Yeah, let me just update the fans, right? They started against Cincinnati, road game in Kansas City. Yeah, that was all Nebraska fans. Then they went to Maryland, Minnesota. Okay. They lost that game 24-6, though. Then they went to UCLA. Not exactly murderer's row there on the road.
Yeah, no, not at all. But this kid's good, man. Yeah. I mean, I had a running back coach in the NFL. Y'all might know him, Deuce Staley. If you're Eagles or Steelers fans, you know Deuce. And one thing that Deuce always used to teach us as running backs was slow to the hole, fast through the hole. And that's one thing that I think Emmett Johnson does best. He's slow to the hole from a standpoint of reading and seeing where it's going to be. But, man, when he sees it, he freaking hits it. And he's fast. He can break tackles. And like you said, he's an every down back. So he's got that receiving threat. They throw a ton of screens to him. He's just a guy when the ball's in his hands, good things happen for that offense.
And don't forget they have a couple of receivers as well. They spread the ball around when they are using the passing game. We're not sure what that passing game will look like with Raiola out and then Latif in with the small sample size that we've seen so far. Defensively, Nebraska has great numbers against the pass, but that's because teams don't have to pass against them because they've been gashed on the ground multiple times this year.
Yeah, it plays right into our favor, right? That's our identity. And then subsequently, I look for our play-action game to be a big impact because of that, right? Being able to establish the run and then put their defensive backs and second-level players in binds.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're growing in the play-action game since Indiana, really. Indiana, Michigan State. Now this game I expect it to grow even more because this is a defense that they get explosives on them. The reality is they get explosives on them. It's because they also cannot stop the run very well. So I see this game with us forcing the run, being successful in the run, and then continuing to develop that play action that has been getting better and better each and every week. I expect it to be at an all-time high today.
You just have to show a little bit of a semblance of a passing game. And I say that, but then Michigan ran 33 times for 286 yards against them. The way Penn State ran the ball last week, the idea is you can do that against this defense. It simply comes down to, can you stop their running back, and then can you run the football tonight? Is it that simple?
Yeah, it's an old-school matchup, man. It's an old-school matchup in the trenches. Can you stop the run? Can you run the football? Can you control the time of possession? And then so forth and so on thereafter.
Yeah, that's the biggest two keys to the game to me is one is stopping Emma Johnson. Then is two, it's taking advantage of their red zone defense. They're 133rd in the country right now in red zone defense. Opposing offenses are scoring 95% of the time when they get in the red zone. So if we get in the red zone, we got to put it in the end zone. We can't trade touchdowns for field goals. Got to be a touchdown. So.
You know who's already in that end zone back there at Beaver Stadium? Kaylee Tallman. Let's check in with Kaylee one last time as we get closer and closer to our Senior Day festivities tonight. And also kickoff, Kaylee. Oh, it's dark. Hi, Kaylee.
Hi, Brian. Yeah, it is dark. Let me tell you, it's cold out here. It was okay earlier on. I'm glad you guys are enjoying the heat over there in Pagula Ice Arena, but it is cold out here. That being said, there are a lot of smiling faces. Actually, when Terry Smith came out here a couple minutes ago, the whole student section, the students that are in here already started chanting, Terry, Terry, Terry. Big smile on his face. Some of the families have also started drifting in here. Trevor Pena's family is rocking matching white beanies with the number 8 on them. So I think there's just a lot of grateful people out here. I also saw Chop Robinson, his former Penn State player, come back. He's here supporting his alumni as well here today. So like I said, a lot of grateful people, me being one of them. I've been so grateful to be here the past 4 years. And it's not just the players who are celebrating their last game, all student photographers, student writers, everyone else that helped the team as well. So selfishly, I'm happy this last game here in Beaver Stadium for me is against Nebraska. My parents and family members who came to Penn State grew up in the time where Nebraska was public enemy number 1 in that mid-90s time, and I have yet to see them play Penn State. So I'm really excited to see Penn State play Nebraska today. Obviously a night game. Energy will be electric in here before Thanksgiving. So yeah, with Thanksgiving coming up, I'm super grateful to be here for one last time, and thank you guys for being so much fun throughout the season as well.
Kaylee, I have two things. Number one, how the Big Ten has gone with Nebraska not playing here since 2017, even when it was a 14-team conference, is so messed up. And that they haven't played since 2020 overall. Like, Penn State, I have never been to a game in Lincoln. I've been working with the team forever here. I've not been to a game in Lincoln yet. The Big Ten screwed that up. Number two, Kaylee, you said it's going to be your last game in Beaver Stadium. It might be as a student. You're going to be back. I don't know if you're going to be working for a 4-letter network or a 3-letter network, but you're going to be back. We don't have to worry about this being your last.
I hope so. That's the hope.
Thank you so much, Kaylee. Enjoy it tonight. We'll see you.
Thank you.
She's a star.
Yeah,
right.
She's a student. It's been a pleasure working with her.
Yeah, it has.
And also, I don't know that people know this at home, and we do have another show yet next week, but a lot of the videos you see and graphics and Victor and Ashlyn and her crew, Kaylee also is doing the behind the scenes, a lot of behind the scenes work to make us look a lot probably smarter.
Star player. Star player.
Right. Whenever you have a teammate that's willing to do the dirty work and then get the accolades too.
She's the glue guy that we talked about. She's the glue guy we talked about for this show.
Yeah. All right. So I think we
we've pretty much simplified the matchup. It's run game versus run game. Can you stop it? And this is a good old-fashioned Big Ten football game tonight. And you might have the elements of Big Ten football, 38 degrees, kickoff, a little wind, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think really it's going to be who can control the environment. Similar to this Michigan State game last week, Michigan State came out, punched us in the mouth on the first play of the game. We were able to take control of the football game from that point on. Can we do something similar? Because whichever team does and starts dictating terms is ultimately going to be the team that runs away with this. Just the momentum and everything that's going on, the intangible things that we talk about that don't necessarily have to do with anything between the lines in the field. So who can really grasp like the momentum of the football game early?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the biggest thing I didn't like about, last week is that it took that 57-yard run as a first play from scrimmage for them to wake up. But the reality is the rest of that game, the solution, what our defense is no explosives, no points. That's what it's going to come down to probably today too, is don't let up the big play because we can survive. Bend and don't break. You let up an explosive, it leads to points. In that game, that was the reality. Big play, points. No big plays, punt, turnovers, whatever the case. So hopefully they keep that streak of limiting the explosives today and obviously stopping Emmett Johnson.
It's 7 o'clock on NBC, also on the Penn State Sports Network tonight. Our thanks to Kaylee Tallman and our entire crew, for Jason Kabinda, Christian Hackenberg, Brian Tripp. Thanks for joining us. If you joined us outside the Beaver State or outside Bryce Jordan Center this year, we appreciate that. Next week's a road show, so it'll be virtual once again. If you want to crack one, you can, but this show is brought to you by Modelo. 21 plus, please drink responsibly, the official import beer partner of Penn State football. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for being a part of the show as always. We'll talk to you next week before Penn State and Rutgers. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and enjoy the game tonight between Penn State and Nebraska. Thanks so much for tuning in.
This is the mark of a fighter. A rich, full-flavored lager with a crisp, refreshing taste. A reward for those with a fighting spirit. You've earned this, so hold it up high. Modelo, the mark of a fighter.
We are going for all the marbles next year.
You know the history, and you have felt the roar. But now, you can relive it all.
I think he was looking for a good meal, Italian meal.
Welcome to the Vault on Roar Plus, where every unforgettable Penn State moment lives forever.
If you can get people to believe you're fair, I think that's the whole secret of coaching.
From black and white grit to high-def glory, the Vault is your front row seat to the moments that built this tradition and the ones that built you as a fan. It's not just history, it's Penn State history. And it's all right here at Roar Plus. The roar never stops.
This is the mark of a fighter. A rich, full-flavored lager with a crisp, refreshing taste. A reward for those with a fighting spirit. You've earned this, so hold it up high. Modelo, the mark of a fighter.